What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Respect Her Game. I'm Laura Stickells. Annabelle Hasselbeck is back with me today, and we've got a solo episode for you. No guests. You're just going to hear us chat, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think. But first, AB, we got to catch up because I saw that you were actually in New York at the New York Marathon this past weekend, which, I mean, I think nothing really compares to marathon weekends. They always look so fun. What was it like?
They are so fun, and I'm glad we get to talk about it today because I'd never been to the New York City Marathon. I had been to the Boston Marathon for years, and it's different. Like, you might think, oh, marathon in a big city, similar. Like, no, this was a different environment, different energy, but we were there to cheer on my roommate's boyfriend, CJ, and it was actually so funny. We didn't have a sign or anything, but the person standing right next to us had this massive poster that said CJ on it. So we're like, you know what? This is a great place to stick out and wait to see him. So
was it just a coincidence?
Such a coincidence, like so random, but it worked out perfectly. We put my roommate on another person's shoulder so that she was able to, find him in the crowd because it's hard. Those runners come by really fast, and you're tracking people and all the things. But what was funny is, you think you know everyone who that's running the marathon, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I know that person. And then you start screaming for them. So it was a really cool experience.
I cannot believe that there was a CJ sign right there. I hope that you guys pretended as if you made it for him. So.
Yes. I mean, he was probably in the thick of it and had no even recollection of what was all around him. I think he was probably just zoned in to see his girlfriend and all his friends that were there to support him. But it was a really cool environment. And every time I watch these marathons, I'm like, I maybe want to do one
Marathon
one day.
Fever.
Is that what it's called?
I don't know. I just made it up.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have that too.
Oh, right now. So would you run a marathon?
So I have actually tried to run marathons in the past. I've done the training. I've made it through. There's a marathon two summers ago that I was training for. 16-week plan. I got all the way through week 12, and I ended up with a stress fracture in my ankle area. And I feel like that's always kind of the issue that I run into. And my problem is that I don't just want to run the marathon. I want to run the marathon fast. So I push myself, I think, a little too hard in my training because I always notice on the runs where I just try to push myself even a little bit are the runs that end up setting me back.
What mile number did you get to?
I had done multiple 20-mile runs.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
so you're basically running.
I was there. I could have just done it. They actually got injured on a 20-mile run, and I was like, you know what? I should have just pushed through. I should have just done the 26.2.
I'm impressed.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
But anyways, hasn't happened for me yet, but maybe one day in my future. I haven't really had time to be training for a marathon at the moment. But
you've been busy with Hockey East.
Yes.
So what games did you have this week?
Okay, so not only have I been busy with Hockey East, it has been just an absolutely kind of wild ride so far. 2 weeks ago, I was sleeping on the side of the road because I was going from Yukon to Providence in the middle of the day, and I needed a nap.
Wait, we need to talk about that quickly because I had to go to Yukon for a separate thing, kind of this, I think within the same couple days that you went to Yukon, and, I had to go there late at night, and Laura's like, yeah, I actually pulled over on the side of the road and had to sleep. But that's crazy. So what happened?
So 2 weeks ago, I was going down to record a Diggs episode in the morning with the Yukon women's hockey team, which is going to be sick. You're not going to want to miss that Diggs episode. But then I had a game in Providence that night, and so I was driving there, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I am so tired. And I was like, you know what? I probably have an hour to spare. I'm just going to pull over here in this gas station and sleep on the side of the road.
So it wasn't on the highway. You were at least at a rest stop.
Yes,
okay.
yes. No, I was at a rest stop. I crawled into the back seat, put my feet up in my window, and just fully knocked out for an hour. And then this weekend, I was hit in the face with a hockey stick, which felt really amazing. It felt about as it would sound. Here's a picture of my face.
Laura.
You can probably see, it doesn't look, unfortunately, as bad as it felt. It felt awful.
Were you crying?
I had, no, are you kidding me? No,
hey, I don't know, I can't see.
No, I was just dazed and confused. So I was hit right here. You can probably still see the little mark on my nose. I thought for a second, I was like, please, I pray that I did not just break my nose.
Yeah.
Because I was standing between the benches and there's no glass there where I was standing at Providence. It's the one school where Yukon kind of, but I'm standing back pretty far. This is the one school where I stand where there's no glass. And I have brought it up a couple times, maybe we should think about moving this, just knowing that it could be a little precarious. And I'm always super careful about watching for pucks and watching for sticks because when the guys come on and off the benches really quickly, sticks are flying and you can get hit in the face or hit anywhere. And so I was standing, and where I'm standing too, like there's walls on either side, and like you just can't back up very far. There's not like a ton of space in this small box. And we're in the third period. I'm actually getting ready to do a hit. So I like am standing there like prepared for, I think it was, we were going to do a hit at like the next whistle or something. So I'm standing there getting ready to do a hit. And I think it was a UNH player came over to grab a puck off the boards, and I see a Providence player just like coming right at him. I'm like, oh gosh, like he's about to come over these boards right now. So I like back up to get out of the way because I don't want him to land on me. But sure enough, he comes like fully over the board, and his stick just
Oh my goodness.
Right on top of my head and across.
Did he come talk to you afterward?
No, he didn't. I don't even think he knew because, like, I was really trying
to say if he knew and he didn't come talk to you.
I was really trying to play it cool. Like, I was really trying to play it cool. You know what? Like, there's nothing more embarrassing somehow than getting hit in the face. I don't know why, but, like, it's really.
Honestly, that's a really true statement.
Like, there is nothing more embarrassing than the feeling of being, like, hit in the face
it's a very vulnerable position.
By a ball or, like, anything. And I've been in those situations a lot. And so, anyways, I got, like, smacked in the face so hard. And I was, like, trying to play it off. Like, nope, nothing happened. Like, I'm totally fine. But you know, when you get hit in the face, you're just, like, trying to assess the damage, right? I'm like, this really hurt, but, like, how bad is it? Like, am I bleeding?
Yeah.
Like,
well, when did you end up doing the hit?
No, so I was like, because I didn't know if like my nose was bleeding. Yeah. Like I wasn't like it really.
But that would have been epic. If your nose is bleeding and you were just like.
So I was concerned that I had like broken my nose or something, and I just couldn't tell. Like I knew, like it's just sort of like the shock is wearing off, you know. So fortunately, the training room was behind the door actually that I was in. So I walked into the training room and I grabbed some like gauze because I had like a cut on my nose. So I was like trying to like get the blood off of my face so I could go back and finish the game. And I texted the producer. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, we're going to scrap that hit. Like, I need a second to get myself together. But yeah, came back out, finished the game strong. Great post-game interview with Nate Lehman.
Let's go.
Yeah, but no.
Resilience at its finest.
Yes, resilience, exactly. But no, that's been the start of my Hockey East season. And I'm at your alma mater this weekend, BC Maine, for a top 5 Hockey East matchup. That's going to be really good. And then on Saturday, I'm back at Northeastern for Northeastern Providence again. So
love it. What's the one thing from the BC matchup? Because I'm a little behind on my BC hockey right now. What should I know?
Well, I think what's really interesting about this matchup is, like I said, they're 2 of the top teams in the nation. BC's ranked number 2, Maine is ranked number 5, but they play very different styles. So that's going to be really interesting. Obviously, BC is super skilled. They're really fast, really great skaters. But Maine, they're the classic definition of play the right way. You know, they play heavy, they're hard on pucks, they don't cheat the game. So Maine is a really great team. They only have 1 draft pick on their team though, which like when you see think about all of the success that they had last season and to start this season, it's very impressive. They're riding a 7-game unbeaten streak right now, which I think is their longest since like early 2000s, I want to say. So that is going to be a great matchup. I'm excited for it. And you know what? Last year, Maine beat BC, and I want to say tied them and took them to a shootout one day. Wow. So it was like really BC's first kind of weekend last season where they didn't do very well. And it was the first time when like Maine last season was really like, this is a real team in Hockey East after they'd been struggling for quite a few seasons. So
all right,
it's going to be a good weekend. And you know what?
Prepared.
Last plug, great goaltending matchup. 2 really great young goaltenders in Hockey East. So that game is going to be on Nesson, by the way, 7 p.m. on Friday. You're going to want to watch that. But yeah, great. I'm looking forward to that. Always fun to do a game at Conti Forum and at BC, as you know.
It is. Conti Forum is the best. So special. I can't wait. Maybe I'll come to that game.
Yes.
Maybe I'll come watch you.
Yes.
I'll be a Loris super fan.
That would be so fun. And if you're enjoying this show so far, make sure you tune in every single Thursday. You can watch these episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or really anywhere you listen to podcasts. So make sure you tune in on Thursdays. All right, well, time to talk some WNBA. So I know we were talking a little bit about this last week, about Stephanie White, how we had thought that there was a good chance that she was going to become the head coach of the Indiana Fever. That's what all of the rumors were pointing to. Obviously, she left the Connecticut Sun after 2 great seasons there. And sure enough, friend of the pod, Alexa Philippou, broke the news on Friday that she was going to be the new coach of the Indiana Fever. And there just seems to be so much excitement, I think, about this coaching hire. And I think, even just at the press conference, obviously Caitlin Clark was there, Aaliyah Boston was there, Lexi Hull was there, 3 of the really young stars on this Indiana Fever team. And the footage that came out of the press conference, when you saw them sitting in the audience, they were like giddy. Like there's so much excitement around this hire and the future with the Indiana Fever.
Yeah, it's exciting, and not only for the girls and the women on the team, but also for like all of Indiana, all of Indianapolis, right? Like Stephanie has been kind of a superstar in this area for a long time. She was Miss Indiana back in the day, I think like in like 95. And so it's really cool, that not only are the players going to rally around her, but also this entire community of Indiana.
Yeah, no, she's as Indiana as they come. Like you said, she was Miss Indiana basketball in high school, which I didn't know that was an award.
I mean, that's the coolest title of award.
Yeah,
imagine being like,
there's Miss and Mr. like basketball for each state,
it's
which
awesome.
I found out because I was like, Miss Indiana basketball, is this just an Indiana thing? It's not just an Indiana thing, but you're right. She was Miss Indiana basketball when she was in high school. She was a former star at Purdue. She was on the Indiana Fever coaching staff from 2011 to 2016, and she was their head coach in 2015-16. So this is like a homecoming back to that team for her. And she was also on the franchise's original roster in 2000.
It's like the perfect match. Like,
yes.
You really can't script it any different, and I think that's why a lot of people were, when she left the Sun, okay, automatically it's going to be the Fever because of all the outside factors, right? Not even talking about how your star player thinks of you very highly, right? Like that's a super important thing in sports, but also specifically in basketball. You want your star player to respect and have a good relationship with your head coach so that you guys can game plan. But really all the other things just that have been a part of Stephanie's life too. I mean, she even talked about how, hey, this is going to be amazing for my family. Like her kids are going to be able to be closer to her family, which hasn't really always been the case. When you're a coach, you have to move around a lot. So really cool to see the other things in her life that have given her this awesome opportunity.
Yeah, and what you said too about just like the team really seems to like her and seems to be embracing her. I know we played the clip last week on the podcast just of Caitlin Clark speaking so highly of her and highly of her experiences when working with her doing Big Ten games. Obviously, Stephanie White was an analyst for Big Ten Network and does some stuff for ESPN as well. And I think like people are just excited as well because Christy Sides, who Stephanie White is replacing, like she was a good head coach, but it was her very first ever head coaching job in the WNBA or in college basketball. It was her first time ever as a head coach, and I think there was just a little bit of a learning curve there. So I think what people are really excited about is to have this coach in Stephanie White, who, she didn't do great when she was the head coach at Vanderbilt with these younger players, but these younger players at Indiana seem to really respect her, and just the excitement of like, what can they do with a coach that does have a resume behind her?
Yeah, and all eyes are going to be on the Fever now. Like if they weren't before, they are more so now, but I think what's cool about this opportunity is that there's a community behind her that's really supporting her in this. It's not like, okay, we're going to see how it goes. Like it really feels like all of the Fever, all of this Indiana community are rallying behind her because the spotlight, like it is bright. This is a huge time for women's basketball, a huge time for Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and so I'm excited to watch this play out.
Yeah, and I actually reached out to Alexa, who we had on the podcast about probably like a couple months ago now, at the beginning of the WNBA playoffs, I believe it was. Gosh, time flies. But yeah, no, I reached out to her just to get her perspective on it. She broke the news on Friday, and I was just like, Alexa, it just feels to me like people are really excited about this hire, and I just need to get like a better understanding of kind of why people feel so passionately about this and why people feel so strongly about this, because Stephanie only coached for 2 seasons after coming back from Vanderbilt. She was only head coach for 2 years at the Sun. Obviously, she was very successful, but it's like, why are people embracing this hire so much? And she said, I think it's for a couple of reasons. Like, clearly amongst the players, they really respect her because like she obviously had success in college basketball, and they feel like they get each other's competitiveness. And I think there's something too that even Caitlin Clark said in one of her more recent press conferences, which really sticks out and just kind of speaks to the respect that they have for her, is that Caitlin said that she felt that the Connecticut Sun always had the best scouts against them whenever the Fever would play them. So I think that like really speaks to just sort of the respect that they have for her game planning ability. And one thing that I was seeing too is a lot of people saying like, oh, Stephanie White, she's like, the next big coach in women's basketball. And I asked Alexa about that as well. And she said, I wouldn't go as far as saying she's the next Cheryl Reeve, but I think just the general sentiment is that she can take them farther than Christy Sides, and she's probably a top 3 or 4 coach in the WNBA right now. So it's really exciting to have that talent from a coach matched up with this kind of talent from a roster.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's kind of like the expectation as well. Like when you have one of the best players in the game, you are expected to win, right? They didn't bring her in just because she's from Indiana and she's got the ties and it's a great storyline. Like they brought her in to win. They brought her in to make use of these really talented players. And I really love what you said about Caitlin shouting out her scout, because that just shows you all the behind the scenes, all the back end work that Stephanie White does. And it's noticed by one of the best players in the game. That's a huge compliment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing too, which is really going to help Stephanie White as she kind of continues on here, is just her media presence. Like the fact that she has been on the other side of the media, as well as she's been an analyst at Big Ten Network. She's worked for ESPN. And so she knows kind of that other side of it as well. There's so much media attention that's on the Indiana Fever right now. So Stephanie White gets it from both ends. And I think she also just like comes across really well in the media because she does have that sort of media training. Like she knows how to be on a broadcast. She knows how to present herself and present her ideas. So I'm excited for some of the press conferences next season. I'm sure we'll get some good quotes from her. And it's gonna be a fun team to watch.
It's good. We gotta get our Fever jerseys. I lived in Indiana for 3 years, so I definitely have a little bit of bias.
You did?
Them. Yeah, for 3 years I was in the cornfields.
No way. What was it like?
You know what? I will say this. I had moved from Nashville to Indiana. And Nashville is like the funnest place ever, right? Yeah. Like there's stuff going on all the time. And to go from Nashville to Indiana was like, whoa, like not a lot going on. But that allowed me to make like some of my best friends that I have still to this day, all in middle school, because you had to make your own fun. You had to find ways to just build relationships with people because things weren't popping up out of nowhere, right? We literally were in the cornfield. So I met some of my best friends to this day in Indiana, so special place in my heart. So I'll be rooting a little bit for the Fever, even though we're out here in New England with the Sun.
We haven't really talked about this, Annabelle, but since you bring it up, something that I'm just so curious about with you was what was it like kind of traveling to these different cities as you were following your dad's career?
Honestly, it was awesome. It was hard as a child to pick up and move for sure, because I was shy growing up. So like, you know what? You go into the first day of school, you don't know anyone. Like there were definitely times when I went to different schools where I thought, oh my gosh, who am I going to sit with at the lunch table? Like that was a real thing, but it's part of life and it's not unique to me to pick up and move and go to a different state, right? Families do it all the time, everywhere, every day. And so I think just knowing that, and I also had my little sister with me, I had my little brother, my parents were awesome about it. And my dad had moved around growing up too. He followed his father's career. So my grandfather played on multiple different NFL teams. So it was kind of just like this is what we do. You pick up and go. But I will say the funny story, we were living in Seattle, and we found out that we were going to be with the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. I remember my dad coming out. We were playing in the driveway. I think I was driving the Barbie Jeep around with my sister.
I always wanted a Barbie Jeep. My dad made me get a Gator eye roll.
Well, we had the Barbie Jeep. And so I'm driving that around. My dad, came out of the house. He's like, hey, like we're going to go to the Titans. And then he's like, the Tennessee Titans. I remember being like, I don't know where Tennessee is. All I know is that Tennessee is in the Hannah Montana movie. So awesome, let's do it. Like, I'd never really heard of Tennessee before, really thought about it, just because we were all the way out in Seattle. So definitely hard, but one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, and you know what? It's just kind of the reality of sports, right? And it's going to pay you dividends, I think, as you go forward in your career, the ability to go to new work environments, go to new places, have that fear going in of like, oh gosh, like who am I going to sit with at the lunch table? Because that still goes with you when you're an adult.
Oh yeah, well the best part was that the first day of school, when I was really feeling the weight of that, they were like, made an announcement. Okay, you have to sit with your homeroom at lunch the first week of school. And everyone was like, man, like everyone
You're
kind of
like,
did one of
thank
these.
God someone to sit with.
I literally was like, this is the greatest thing ever. They have to sit with me just because I was feeling that, so lonely because I didn't know anyone. So shout out to the park tutor administration back in the day for making you sit with your homeroom. Help the new kids.
No, that is awesome. I love that. Well, if you're enjoying this show so far, make sure you tune in every Thursday. New episodes come out. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Okay, so the women's college basketball season tipped off on Monday, and you know what? Great game, really, to start the season with USC barely squeaking out a win against Ole Miss, 68-66. Those were the number 3 and number 20 ranked teams in the nation, and they did not disappoint. So I know since we want to kind of get excited for this women's college basketball season, we each picked 2 teams that we're both really excited to follow this season, and we're going to kind of tell you why and give you their storylines, because teams are always more fun when you're invested in their storylines and you're invested in the people, right? So I can get this kicked off, and people are probably going to roll their eyes at me when I say, oh, I picked UConn. because
listen, I wanted to pick UConn too, but
I beat UConn. You to it.
You did beat me to it.
I beat you to it. People are like, oh, come on, UConn again. But no, I think this is a really exciting UConn team because obviously they were just like plagued by injuries last season. Paige Bueckers played like every position on the court last year. But what I'm most excited about with UConn is the opportunity to hopefully, fingers crossed, if they can stay healthy, see Paige Bueckers and AZ Fudd play together and see how dynamic of a duo those 2 guards can be when they're really at their best. Because those are 2 players. AZ is now in her 4th year of college basketball. Paige Bueckers is now in her 5th. They've only played 17 games together over their time at UConn, and they're known for being like such a great duo when they play together. Paige was a big reason why AZ came to UConn. So they used to play together at USA Basketball. That's when they met, was at a USA Basketball camp, and they became like truly best friends. And Paige like recruited AZ essentially to play at UConn. She would post on Twitter like, make AZ come to UConn. Obviously, Paige was the number 1 overall recruit in her class. AZ was the number 1 overall recruit the year following. But ever since AZ came to UConn following Paige, they just like have not been healthy at the same time. And it's been so unfortunate because you hear about how magical they can be when they play together, and it just really hasn't happened for them to get to build that chemistry on the court because they haven't been healthy at the same time. So Paige finally had a healthy season last year, which was really exciting to see. AZ was out for most of the season last year with a knee injury, and she's going to miss the first couple of games, it sounds like, this year, according to Gino Auriemma, but then she's going to be back. So hopefully all goes well. She'll be back, and they'll be getting to play together. But I think that's something that I am really looking forward to seeing. There's nothing like watching 2 players that have a ton of chemistry together.
That's awesome. I'm excited to watch that too. And fun fact, I actually got to D-up Paige in AAU basketball back in the day.
What?
Yeah, when I was in
details.
my team, we were in like the national tournament for AAU basketball, and she was the big, everyone was talking about her, and I got to, go in at the end of the game. I was not the star player, okay? But I did play against her. I did defend her.
How was it? How'd you do?
You know what? I don't really know. I was just nervous to be in there, so I hope I did well, but we did beat the team, and we ended up losing to West Virginia in the national championship game, so we were able to knock them off, but she is an amazing athlete, amazing competitor, so that's a little something, my claim to fame.
Wait, how old were you?
Man, how old was I? I was in middle school.
Wow, okay, so you were quite the little hooper.
Listen, Indiana basketball, it's a big deal there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because you're right, that's when you were in Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't believe that. You got to play against Paige Bueckers. That is awesome.
Cool. For a few minutes. My teammates played against her a lot more than I did.
So just last thing on UConn, they've got 2 number 1 incoming, or 2 number 1 recruit, 3, no, sorry, excuse me. They now have 3 number 1 recruits on their roster because they also have Sarah Strong coming in, who's hoping to be more of like a presence in the paint for them. So yeah, great year, I think, for UConn up ahead, and we'll see if they can make it back to the national championship. Who's one of your picks?
Yeah, well, speaking of young players, top recruits, Michigan women's basketball is who I'm excited to see. They started 3 freshmen in their opener against South Carolina, and this is not a top 25 team, but they were able to stay within just a few points of South Carolina. This is the number 1 team coming off an undefeated season. They only lost by 68-62. And the freshman Silas Swords, she popped off. This girl scored 27 points. 27 points in her freshman debut, 12 rebounds, and just like forget the amount of points. You have 12 rebounds as a freshman in your first game ever. That is a hustle play. That is a hustle stat. And she said after the game, boxing out was a part of our game plan. That was something that we knew that we needed to get the edge on them early in the game, and that's what she did. And that's all that you can ask from a freshman. So really cool to see her just really lead this team. And I was actually able to talk to one of the seniors on this basketball team who used to be at Boston College, and I said, hey, like, Sila, what the heck? That was insane. She said, Annabelle, she is the most humble person ever. And that's exactly what her coach and her other teammates said about her after the game. So I'm super excited to cheer them on. I'm super excited to see if they can carry this momentum. Usually when a team goes up against a number one ranked opponent, you have to give them your best game or you kind of bow out. And this Michigan team did not do that. So I'm really excited to see, and I wonder, can they keep this momentum up? Can they be a breakout team this season, and can they crack into that top 25 group?
You really can never count Michigan out of any sport. It seems like they're just good at or they have the ability, I should say, to be good at everything. And I love that you went ahead and picked a freshman, Sila Swords, who you saw pop off. That's great research by you. And I'm looking forward to seeing them as well. The next one that I'm excited to pick is Iowa. Not Iowa State, who people have ranked in the top 25. I'm picking Iowa, the team where all of the stars just left. They just lost their head coach. No Caitlin Clark, no Kate Martin, no Gabby Marshall. They're all gone. They have a new head coach who was formerly their assistant coach in Jan Jensen. But you know what? I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of those girls who didn't get to play before, now are going to get the opportunity to play. And something that I think is really exciting for them is that they're going into this season with an underdog mentality, because nobody expects them to be good this season with all of their stars gone. But they also have that experience. They have the experience at playing in the biggest games. And just one of those things can really kind of propel you through a season, whether or not it be, the experience helping you get there or the feeling of being disrespected, motivating you to get there. And the fact that they have both, I think, is going to be really big. Do I think they're going to, make a deep run in the NCAA tournament? Probably not. But you know what? I'm excited for them. And they added a former Villanova guard in Lucy Olson from the transfer portal. She was the nation's third leading scorer last season. She averaged over 23 points per game. So she's coming in to be the centerpiece of the team. And clearly she has the ability to be a very good basketball player at this level. But I think the other thing that's going to be interesting for this team is, can Lucy Olson just handle the narrative that's going to come with it of the player that's here to replace Caitlin Clark? And that's not fair to put on anybody's shoulders, but the reality is that's kind of the position that she's stepping into, and that's the narrative that people are going to place on her. So it's going to be interesting to see how she can handle that. I know so far people are saying that it seems like she's handling it really well. But yeah, I'm excited for Iowa. I mean, even with all of these stars gone, they've still sold out all their home games. So another good season, hopefully, for the Hawkeyes.
That's a great reason to go to Iowa, to go watch a basketball game. That's probably an insane environment. And like you said, that experience, yes, you don't have your superstars, but that experience is still there. And I think that's so valuable. Throughout even my college experience, you lose your top players every year because they usually graduate. They're usually the older ones on the team. But you're still able to find a way if you can use that experience to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. All right, what's your last pick?
All right, my last pick, a little tribute to my little brother Henry, who's out in Hollywood in LA, the UCLA Women's Bruins, the basketball team. They are number 5 right now. Last season, they went 27-7, and they've made it to the Sweet 16 the last 2 seasons. So I'm really excited to see if they're able to even just break into that Final Four this year. They have 3 top 15 transfers. That's a lot of top 15 transfers. So I think the cool thing about that, especially with Charlize Ledger-Walker, she's from Washington State. She is coming off an ACL injury, but all her teammates have been talking about, even though she might not be on the court right away with them, the wisdom that she's brought to them, coaching them up, giving them advice. And usually, when you have transfers come in, you're testing the waters, you're figuring it out. But they have welcomed her in so much, just like the other transfers. And they want to hear from her. They want to get her advice on, how do you see things? And really, they were saying, we're just glad that we don't have to play against her anymore. And I think that is a really funny thing, because I've definitely felt that in my own experience when someone joins us. Whew, now we don't have to play against them, right? But they have Kiki Rice, London Jones, Lauren Betts. These are all players who have really taken on leadership roles and bought into what Coach Close is doing. in her 14th year at UCLA. But the crazy thing, in their opening game, UCLA actually got a technical to start the game because they didn't deliver their lineup early enough.
Oh,
yes.
Well, that's something that you would expect a head coach of that many. Okay, interesting.
So they started the game with a technical, and I'm thinking, like, man, good luck to that manager. Like, to all the managers out there, that is a stressful job.
Yeah.
So hard to start the game off on that foot, but they were able to take down Louisville and win that game against the number 17 team, Louisville.
Yeah.
So it's a good team. So I'm excited to watch them and see how, with this, transfer class and just with this momentum that they have going, if they're able to get it done this year.
I love that you picked UCLA because so many people are talking about the team across town and USC. No, not University of South Carolina, University of Southern California. In my opinion, the real USC from California. But in any case, I love that you picked UCLA because I feel like they're getting a little bit overshadowed by Juju Watkins and everything that has been going on at USC over the past year and all the hype that they have. But no, great pick. I love it. Those are the 4 teams that we're picking for you guys to watch this season as you get into college basketball. But truly so many other teams to be able to watch. I know I just mentioned University of Southern California. Also, of course, University of South Carolina. I still can't get over the fact that they won all 38 games last season.
It's crazy.
An
I had to
undefeated
recheck
season.
that too because when I was just looking at Michigan, it's like, and the undefeated. I'm like, were they actually undefeated? I was like, oh yeah, they were actually undefeated. That is so hard.
I literally have to double check that every single time I say it because I remember when I was like watching the games last year at the end during the national championship, they were saying undefeated, and I'm like, really, undefeated the whole year? And I kept like fact checking it, and then every time you bring them up on this podcast, I'm always like, were they really undefeated? Because it's just like so unbelievable. So props to them and Dawn Staley for being able to do that. And that's
why I picked Michigan, because I was like, man, you got within 6. Like, we'll count that.
Yes. Yeah. So, but there was another great story coming out of University of South Carolina this week, not on the women's basketball team, but actually on the football team. The football team defeated number 15 ranked Texas A&M. And Annabelle, I think you're going to take this one away because this was a story you were really excited about. Shane Beamer.
I loved this. Was absolutely crazy. So I was scrolling on my phone and I saw this caption from the South Carolina football account, and it said, and they say romance is dead. And to me, I'm like, okay, in what world does this caption make sense with what the video was? And I think we have the video here today. Take a look.
I know y'all sing this song at practice, so I'm going to need a little backup right here. But this is her little birthday. Hit it, Big Mike.
I live for this stuff. I absolutely loved it. And I thought the cool part about this was he started out with saying, I told my kids that if we won, I would do something for you. And it just shows you the accountability that he knew. Like, I'm about to go home and what are my kids using? What did you do for mom in the locker room, right? And so I just love that video because, yes, when you win, it definitely builds chemistry. It builds culture. It brings you closer as a team, right? Especially when they're big games like that. But when you're able to see the more personal side of your coaching staff from a player to coach relationship, you really get deeper in your relationship as an organization, as a team, as a community. And I think this is really going to, even though it sounds like, a silly moment, a fun moment, every single time these guys in that locker room, or really anyone who is in there, from the wife to the media, they're going to think about that moment. And it just really, it brings the human side back into college football, brings the human side back into the intensity of this season.
And it also kind of reminds you too, I think, for a player, like the people that are behind the coaches that are really there to support them week in, week out through wins and losses. And Mrs. Beamer, I don't know actually her first name, but Mrs. Beamer, clearly she's, means a lot obviously to that team and to the coach as well. So very important. Well, if you're enjoying this show, make sure you tune in every single Thursday. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. All right, well, Annabelle, I think we got to talk a little bit of NFL because there was a lot of news.
We got some updates.
We've got some updates. And I think we're going to kick it off by starting with the Cowboys because Cowboys fans are probably not very happy after this week.
Cowboys, what are we going to do? It just keeps, it's like this. It's just like a straight downward spiral.
Yeah, no, it's bad. Dak Prescott is out weeks with a hamstring injury. It's worse, apparently, than they initially feared. So Jerry Jones said on Tuesday that he's probably going to the IR, which means the earliest he could return is week 14 for the Cowboys' Monday night game versus the Bengals. And the Cowboys, they're in a really bad spot. They're 3-5 overall. They're currently third in the NFC East, and they have 3 of their next 4 games are against division rivals in the Eagles, Washington Commanders, and New York Giants. And obviously CeeDee Lamb is also dealing with a shoulder injury. So they just cannot catch a break right now. They're not in a good spot.
They can't. And especially for Dak, you're the most expensive player in football, right? Expectations are so high. And now you have this really non-contact injury. Like, it's really tough. And Jaden Daniels could be the MVP. He is outplaying you in his rookie season. So this is just an absolute blow for the Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott, like, not showing up. It's just a fall in just the physical presence now from Dak being gone in leadership and for this whole Cowboys organization.
Yeah, and something that I heard that was interesting as well is people are going to point the finger at Dak Prescott being out as the reason why the season's going south. This is not the only reason why the season is going south for the Cowboys. And, you know, the thing that just kind of made me laugh this week too is Jerry Jones said that the Cowboys were buyers at the deadline, and this just kind of like goes back into the organizational confusion that is the Dallas Cowboys, because so as buyers they went ahead and acquired wide receiver Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 7th round pick from Carolina for a 2025 4th round pick. And Jonathan Mingo, he's not a good player. Like, the Dallas Cowboys are not a Jonathan Mingo away from making the playoffs. Like,
that's a great line.
Yes, I have to give credit. I believe it was in an article that I want to say Nora Princiotti wrote for The Ringer. Yeah. You should check her out. She's a great reporter. But I believe she said that. She's like, the Dallas Cowboys are not a Jonathan Mingo away from making the playoffs. Like, he has 12 receptions for 121 yards this season. He's just not good. And you know what? Beyond that, he's not worth a 4th round pick because DeAndre Hopkins, who's a 5-time Pro Bowler, was acquired by the Kansas City Chiefs for less than that. So just not a good decision by the Dallas Cowboys, and just doesn't make sense. And I think this is just another instance of like Jerry Jones doing a little too much.
Yeah. Well, the big problem too is this isn't like, oh yeah, it's a little hamstring tweak, like, see you next week.
Yeah.
This was something that Dak said, you know, I've never felt this before. And when you play at this level for that long, that he's been, you know, even in college football and now in the NFL, you feel a lot of injuries. You experience a lot of different things. And for him to be like, yeah, I've never felt this before, it has got to be bad. I dealt with a hamstring injury. And if you don't take care of those things, they linger for years. Like, they really do. And so I'm sure the Cowboys are going to handle it the best that they can. But this is not a quick fix.
Yeah. Well, Saquon Barkley, he also made headlines for this sweet spin/straddle move.
Ninja.
that took place in the second quarter of the Jaguars-Eagles game. And I first heard about this on the radio. The guys on the radio were like, when you get to where you're going, pull up your phone and look up this play, because it is like nothing you've ever seen on the football field before. And it did not disappoint.
No, that was my favorite angle, too, of the video we just showed, because not only did you see the play, but you saw the team's reaction to it. And, like, cool things happen all the time in football. You're with your teammates all the time. You see what they can do. You see their highs. You see their lows. You see their trick shots. You see their jump plays. But, like, their reaction, they were all in shock. And I think that's what really everyone who saw this video was in shock with.
I would love to ask him, like, what he was thinking in that moment. Like, where was his head going? When did it occur to him, like, this is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a backwards leap straddle.
Yeah. Well, it had to just be, like, a knee-jerk reaction. Like, don't even think I'm turning around, I'm going to jump. I'm probably going to get hit anyway. So here we go.
You know what it kind of reminded me of? Like a Simone Biles floor routine. You know, she like goes up and like does their like straddle stuff.
This might get him on Dancing with the Stars. This might be his invitation to Dancing with the Stars.
It could be his big break.
Yeah.
All right. Last thing we're going to talk about in relation to the NFL is Jason Kelce, who got in an altercation with a fan at the Penn State-Ohio State game. He smashed their phone to the ground after that fan used a homophobic slur that was directed towards Travis, and then he repeated the word back to the fan. I saw this on Twitter, and I was a little surprised, actually, by the comments. First of all, obviously, like, Jason Kelsey was provoked in this. The fan was 100,000,000% in the wrong. You can never use that word, in my opinion. And also just, like, harassing somebody, like a public figure like that in public is never appropriate. But the way in which Jason responded, and I think where I was disappointed was just in him using the word back to the fan. And I get that it's a heated moment. I get that's a lot going through your head right in that moment. And, like, who knows? Like, I couldn't even sit here and say that I would do a better job in a moment like that. But even still, I guess I was just a little disappointed that, like, fans in the comments were egging him on and almost encouraging him. It's like, I get that, like, he was in a, like, I'm not saying that he was worse than the fan in any way, because I don't think that's true at all. But I don't think he handled it as best as he could have. I think most people feel differently than I do on that, honestly. But he did address it on Monday Night Football. He apologized for it, which I felt was a sincere apology. And I'm sure he'll be addressing it more this week on his New Heights podcast with Travis.
Yeah, well, he's lucky. He has the biggest platform, Monday Night Football, to give his apology and to really make a public statement about it. And he did say, he was like, I met hate with hate. And that's really what it was. And, it's a learning experience, but it does show you, like, you can't lose your cool. And this is what happens. It's like a little bit of a screw around and find out situation.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to do one would you rather each?
I would love to do one would you rather.
One would you rather each. Okay. Here we go.
Okay. You're first?
I'm going first.
All right.
I'll read it to you. Would you rather be serenaded in front of the public or in private?
I'm so glad I got this one because I actually wanted to answer this. Okay, I've thought about this for many times, actually, because I love videos like that we showed with South Carolina. I would want to be serenaded, if this gets to anyone, I would want to be serenaded in public, because I think I would be so awkward if it was just like me, the people were singing to me, and like somebody else. Like, it would just be uncomfortable. It'd be like one person singing you happy birthday. You just sit there. Think about that. But it's a lot less awkward if like 10 people are singing you happy birthday, right?
I gotta say, I never want to be serenaded.
Imagine me just sitting here and singing you happy birthday. It'd be kind of weird.
No, it would be weird, but it'd also be weird if I was in front of a college football team and they were serenaded. See, I think I don't want to be serenaded ever.
Okay, Laura doesn't want to be serenaded.
Please don't. If you're watching this, do not serenade me. But serenade Annabelle in public.
Yeah, in public, I guess. That'd be better than just one person
We
watching.
have time for one.
All right. Oh, okay. I feel like I know your answer to this, but we'll see. Would you rather play for UConn women's basketball or for South Carolina women's basketball?
Oh, man.
Rower.
That is a tough one. Okay, so hard to pick for sure, but I think I'm going to go with UConn women's basketball simply because of the colors. I love the color blue. And I love the blueberries that it's the big puffy jackets that the UConn athletes wear. They call them blueberries. I learned that when I was doing the UConn women's hockey
We got to
digs.
get Laura a blueberry
I
jacket.
would like a blueberry, so I'm going to pick UConn women's basketball.
Maybe for your digs episode, you can give Laura a little something.
All right, well, we're about to roll this episode out, but one thing that I just want to give credit to, as last week was Halloween, we didn't get to put the costumes on at the time, but I think we're going to show this as we roll out. Bill's ex-girlfriend of 16 years, Linda Holliday, dressed as the bride from the movie Kill Bill for Halloween. And I gotta say, like, she looked great. And you know what? I think there was some meaning in this, don't you?
I do, and I will say, just seeing all these really thought out and intentional costumes this year made me realize, man, I gotta put a lot more effort into what I've been doing for Halloween. I do not try hard enough in that realm. So props to everyone who really put their best foot forward this Halloween.
Yeah. Awesome job, everybody. Love the costumes. And thank you for watching another episode of Respect Her Game. We will see you next Thursday.